I want to make sure before we get out of this interview that I also tell you there's a couple things that are important to me. I'm also an organizer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a social worker, but I mean, the other lesson we learned from Bill Dixon was, and Bill would use this phrase, you have to have a situation, meaning look at his work organizing in the 60s with the Jazz Composers Guild, the October Revolution. And so I didn't just cut my teeth on how to play the trumpet or how to play in these orchestral situations. I was very interested in how he made things happen, and he talked plenty about it, and there was plenty of things you could look at. So when I came to New York, if I didn't have gigs, I got involved in either co-ops or I started producing my own festivals.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you're in New York. I mean, there's a million musicians, and proportionally, not enough places to play either. And at least traditionally, the best work and the best money often went to people who come in from out of town, take the money, and leave, like a lot of large metro areas. So arguably, New York City is just another local scene when it comes to people who live there over time. And if you're going to have anything happen, look at the people that are interesting, that are not only getting their work done, but creating a lot of work for other people. Look at Andrew Drury. Look at Soup and Sound and the nonprofit that he created and all the concerts he's presented. He doesn't have to do any of that shit. He could just play his own music and put his own records out. But that's an interesting way of working, right?
Sure.
That's what Bill meant by a situation. He meant a critical mass of other people who are creating that you're in the middle of, a milieu, a situation, right?
Sure.
And even the last time we drove to Vermont with him, a week before he died, 2 weeks before he died, we passed this big old country house in the woods in Vermont, and he said, you know, I still think that really the most interesting thing you can do is to buy a big house like that and fill it full of interesting people who are all doing their work. Have some meals together. Every once in a while, invite people in to see what you're doing. He had a dream about that for years. And so that was, you know, you asked me about the lesson again.
Sure.
That was the thing that if you had the eyes and the inclination, you picked up. I certainly picked it up. So when you see me organizing with Joe for 6 years here and creating local work, because I do think you need to create work where you live. But that work should also draw people in from other places and create allegiances that link cities and link states and link, I mean, ideally, if enough musicians could actually really work together, we wouldn't have to worry about touring because we'd have a cooperative arrangement. But organizing, we use the word jazz. Jazz musicians is like organizing herding cats, man.
Sure.
And in
Yeah.
a way, the cats, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah. It sure is. And it's
And I
not.
don't mean to be disparaging. I don't mean to sound like I'm a crank sitting up here in the woods. But you know, there was a maxim when I grew up in the 60s, you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. There's a lot of people that like to spend a lot of time complaining about things in this music. But there's a much smaller number of people who stop complaining, roll up their sleeves, and make some shit happen. Those are the people I want to know.
Sure.
Those are the records I want to buy. Those are the people I want to have conversations with. Okay, great.
Sure.
Something else is going on. You're not just playing a horn and giving a gig and trying to knock me off the bandstand. You're doing something else. No one told you had to do it, but you found it interesting. Okay, that's interesting to me.
Yeah. Sure. And creating a world around the art unto itself, whatever that is.
Having a community and what a community really means is a responsibility of every constituent member of the community. We all have a role to play. I'm not sure we're all aware that we're in the community and that we need to reach out and help other people without thinking first about what we're going to get from doing it. And again, I don't want to oversimplify and label what other people are doing. I know I'm speaking in broad terms, but I mean, in the end, a lot of things fall away over time, right? And so the thing that gets left after a while are authentic relationships with other people. And arguably, it's that shared time where the magic comes. We go back to those early questions where you talked about free music. And I said to you, it's important who you work with. But imagine if there's a person or people you work with, and you work with them once. This is in free music, right? And you work with them again. Then you work with them again. Still no rules before you get in the bandstand, no pre-arrangements, no plan A, no plan B. But there's a really important function that memory plays in the music. And no matter what we're talking about, you talk about learning bebop, you talk about all of these things, but in this music we're talking about, the discipline is, the part that I love the most is the shared music carried across different one-on-one, one-on-two, two-on-three, five-on-five groups of people where I see you again, like I see you again and we start talking, I see you again and we start playing. That shared experience we have informs the music, right? Mm-hmm. So the literacy, the music and stuff might come through a methodology, might come from a language, might come from structural rules, but might also come from shared experience, right? So when you see, we all know this in the band, when you see a working band, which we don't see that much anymore,
Sure.
some other shit is happening, right?
Yeah.
Because they're doing this thing over and over. So something, it moves to another level. I think all of us would like to have that. I want to be surprised, but I also want that intimacy and that trust relationship with other people. When you're a good band leader, you develop that in an ensemble. When you're a good orchestra leader, you develop that sense of ensemble. It's part of how you make the music work. Arguably more important than the written part and your conducting and all your systems and all your labels is how you bring people together and get them to move together.